So yeah, today I'm going to talk about my family's story and what sustainability means to us. So this is my home at Barfield Station. It's situated in central Queensland, and we breed and finish cattle for the organic, EU and natural grass-fed markets. Our 3 properties cover an area of 17,000 hectares, and we run around 4,500 head of cattle. We just love being part of the Australian beef industry, and we are passionate about sustainable grass-fed beef production and the future of farming families in Australia. Sustainability matters. Well, this is why it matters to me. And here's a photo of my husband and I with our children and grandchildren out in one of our paddocks at Barfield. And sustainability is about securing a future for them, and it's about the contribution we can make to global food security. So as a member of a multi-generational farming family, we've got a real responsibility to remain sustainable for our future generations by protecting our environment, our animals, our people, and our business. We do this through good stewardship of our landscape. We've got diversity of pastures and trees. We ensure we've got good conditions of our soils, and we protect the health and welfare of our animals. We build economic viability of our business and protect the health and well-being of the people working within the business. And we apply the highest standards of biosecurity. We also think a lot about our customers and end consumers of our beef, and we're considerate of their expectations around sustainable food production. From a practical perspective on our properties, we implement many strategies to ensure the long-term sustainability of our environment and our business. One of those strategies that cover most of our sustainability goals is the establishment of the legume leucaena. And you can see in these photos taken from a helicopter, or the one there's taken from the helicopter, there's strips of leucaena. So we plant the rows with about a 12-metre spacing. And you can see that there's a dark green leafy area against the buffel grass, and that dark area is the leucaena. So cattle grazing on these pastures average around 1 kilo weight gain per day. Leucaena can improve the soil fertility by fixing nitrogen and improve water infiltration. This in turn reduces erosion and salinity. The health and welfare of our cattle is improved as leucaena is high in protein, and its ability to keep producing high quality green leaf through extended dry periods assists us with drought mitigation. Carbon is sequestered in the woody growth, and the high digestibility characteristics of leucaena can reduce methane emissions by 20 to 40%. Leucaena pastures sequester around 500 kilograms of carbon per hectare per year in the first 4 years of planting, making it one of the most productive and sustainable forage legumes available. Another game changer for us is the use of genomic technologies to accelerate the genetic gain for productivity and profitability of our cattle. By DNA testing our heifers for early puberty and their ability to get in calf again in the second year, and using estimated breeding values for bull purchases, we can breed cattle with faster growth to market specifications, reducing both the amount of feed required and the amount of methane emitted, as the animal will be marketed at a younger age. This genomic technology takes the guesswork out of breeding cattle for greater environmental efficiency, and it's another tool in the belt to reduce methane emissions per kilogram of red meat produced. The objective information we can collect on feed efficiency, the poll gene, temperament, and tick resistance all contribute to our decision-making for long-term sustainability. This little bull calf looks like he got a real mix of genes with his unusual colourings. Some of the other genetic traits we look for when selecting our bulls is fertility, days to calving, low birth weights or ease of calving, and carcass quality traits. The health and welfare of our animals is also a high priority, and we focus on ensuring we have adequate and high quality feed and water, a stress-free environment, and the use of pain relief when required. The use of renewable energy is another tool used to reduce the environmental footprint of our enterprise. This slide shows a couple of the different size pumps we have to pump our stock water supplies. One of our properties is 100% solar powered, and the energy generated from this system powers the homestead, work sheds, and stock water bores. In total, across our 3 properties, we have 27 solar powered stock water bores. Another of our properties has a 13.5 kilowatt solar system, reducing the amount of grid supply required. We have huge amounts of sunshine and solar energy at our fingertips, making Australia a renewable energy powerhouse. So it makes sense to replace the amount of fossil fuels used with solar power. I've put this slide in to show you that we also utilise wind power when pumping stock water. And this windmill backs a solar pump on days like this when we get heavy cloud, as you can see in that slide. By combining remote sensing technology with solar pumping systems, the use of fossil fuels is dramatically decreased. The days of driving hundreds of kilometres to start fossil fuel pumps can now be replaced with innovative systems and technology. One area that links all our sustainability goals together is good biosecurity. Biosecurity is critical to supporting the health and well-being of people, healthy ecosystems, and sustainable food systems. Diseases and pathogens are expected to increase and shift as temperatures increase. And given that at least 75% of new human infectious diseases are zoonotic, biosecurity is paramount for not only the beef industry's long-term sustainability, but the entire world population. We have on-farm biosecurity plans on all of our properties and utilise digital dashboards and online apps to monitor our biosecurity procedures. I'm proud to say Australia has one of the strongest biosecurity and traceability systems globally, ensuring we can continue to produce nutritious and safe beef to the world. You will notice in this photo the animal has ear tags. The one on its right side is an electronic ear tag that we can use to trace the lifetime of that animal, including all its movements, any treatments it might have needed, and weight gains. We can record all sorts of data that tells us the lifetime story of that animal. All of these systems require ongoing research, development, and adoption. Our business, in collaboration with government, natural resource management groups, scientific experts, researchers, and industry bodies, is involved in several research and development projects. They give us the technical and expert advice we're required to continue to move our business into a sustainable future. The collection of data and the ability to analyse that data for improving our environmental stewardship, animal welfare and business performance is also critical for our long-term sustainability. This also gives us credible and verifiable information to share with the consumers and customers of our beef. As producers of high-value, clean, safe and natural protein, we take our responsibility to continue to contribute to global food security very seriously, and have commenced the journey to carbon neutrality. The beef industry is definitely an important player in a sustainable future, and I am proud to be part of this. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Melanie, for that amazing work that you're doing on farm, and I think it was really would be for those that are watching really interesting to even to see production systems in Australia in general. Some people haven't had the fortune to be able to come over to Australia and be able to even see how production happens in Australia. Would you consider yourselves typical or atypical when it comes to Australia, and or do you see this as a growing trend? Some of the work that you're doing with the work across sustainability in Australia.
I think it's definitely a growing trend, Michael. You know, most producers are very aware of the importance of sustainability for the long-term future. So I think things like the Australian Beef Sustainability Framework is such an important tool for us. It's an important tool for producers to actually be able to showcase what they do. It's a bit of a scorecard to show our customers and consumers, you know, what we're doing in that space and how we're performing. So it sort of tracks changes and performance over a year. So, you know, things like that, I think, prove to customers and consumers just how serious we are in Australia about ensuring that we've got sustainable systems in place, and just how serious we are about looking after global food security and producing, you know, highly nutritious and safe protein for the world to enjoy.
Hello. Thank you, Pacho. And no this is a 2020 seance. So this is where you don't see me, but you can hear me. All right. So, yes, a few issues with my internet machine, but we're ready to start, and I'm very thrilled to be here. So I'm just going to click my fingers, and Alex is totally going to change the slide. Alex, hello today. Yeah. Well, it's okay. My first slide is asking the question, what is sustainability? So perhaps you can pop into the poll and have a look at the options there and click the one that you think is, oh, yeah. So this is a build, Alex. So you probably need to go back 2 clicks. Back. Yeah. It's so neat. I have complicated slides. So can everyone see the poll? I wonder.
Yes, I can, Sarah.
Right. I wonder if people can answer the question, what is sustainability? And I was going to do this poll before I put all these 4 options up, but that's okay. So I'll just talk you through them. And I guess the concept is that sustainability is not a simple concept. It has different meanings for different people, even certainly in the academic and the commercial world. There are many, many different interpretations of what sustainability is. Do we have a results from our poll?
Yes, we've got 2 for planting trees and 24 for global well-being.
Oh, good. I put in a catchphrase because that's what it was described as in the last session. Anyone who had their ears on might have noticed that. Okay, so but the thing about it is it's hard for people to come to an agreement. So it can be all of these things. You might hear it being talked about as the ability to exist constantly or be maintained, or perhaps the idea we shouldn't use up everything today that will also needed by future generations. And then there's one that's, more focused on natural resources. So we should probably avoid the depletion of our natural resources in order to maintain an ecological balance. And the idea of that we're only able to operate within the planetary boundaries at hand, and we're starting to exceed them. Okay, next slide, Alex, tech support. All right, so this is a model that was developed by John Elkington about 25 years ago, and many, many organisations have this as their model of sustainability. Like, how do we capture it in some kind of schematic or conceptual way? And this is called the triple bottom line, and I'm sure you've seen it before. You might even use it in your organisation. So the idea is there are 3 parts that we need to ensure we're managing properly. People, so all the social variables dealing with equity and social resources, health and well-being. I think I put paying people properly in one of my options, and that includes that. Planet. So as I spoke to earlier, making sure that we're managing our environmental variables because it is a finite resource. And then, of course, profit. Because when you are making a margin, you have freedom to put together good systems and good management of your planet and people. But of course, you could have just profit and people. You could have a sawmill but no forest, which then kind of makes the other 2 a bit redundant. John Elkington, just 2 years ago, decided to recall his model of triple bottom line. And he said, this concept needs recalling because it is not going ahead with the pace and scale that we need to go ahead with to make sure that we're reversing the damage that we're doing and going to be able to maintain a sustainable future. He said it needs radical intent. Speaking of radical intent, let's go to the next slide. Yeah. So radical intent. So this is Greta Turnburg, and she's a Swedish student and environmental activist. And if anyone has mobilised the idea of action now around climate change and managing our environment, it's Greta. And she was Times Person of the Year in 2019 and the youngest ever. And we see it all around our communities. Certainly in Australia and every city, major city overseas, this school striking for climate change. Now, this photo, I've seen smarter cabinets at IKEA, is, referring to our government cabinet in our Westminster-style system of government here in Australia, not doing enough to head off global warming. And probably the young women you see in this photo have probably about to vote in their next election. So we can see that these are, there's lots of sources of data that show that these are very important issues for all parts of our generations living today, and those who hope to live for at least another 30 or 40 years or have children. So next slide, please, Alex. So not only do we understand that it's an important issue because of the civil unrest that's come around with climate change and sustainability, we also know that millennials are willing to monetize their commitment to sustainability. So this is data from Nielsen a little while ago, but it demonstrates that there is a commitment to buy products that are more sustainable, fewer products, and products that meet their values, that match their values. Next slide, please. But it's not just millennials who are buying things. Many people buy things. And some data here, more work from, is it Nielsen? Oh, I can't see. We can see that any products with sustainability claims enjoy quite good year-on-year sales growth. And particularly if we're talking about sustainable business practices and sustainable farming. When I say sustainable business practices, I mean things to do with social and governance. If you could click on, there's some more information below, and that is from Unilever. So you don't just have to be a small kind of funky startup. We know that in Unilever's 2019 report, they were able to tell us that they have 28 purpose-led sustainable living brands, Dove, Omo and Lipton being but 3 of them, and they grew 69% faster than the rest of the business and delivered about 3/4 of its overall turnover growth. So that absolutely bears marking. Next slide, please. I think the next slide might be no, it's not 8. Okay. All right. So then let's talk specifically about a sustainability issue that has really become very prominent in the last few years in the business sector, and that is animal welfare. So since I can't see underneath there, 2007, I think, the business benchmark on farm animal welfare has been running, and it's a very well recognised and respected global benchmark. Last year, 150 food companies participated. There are 35 criteria against which the company is assessed, and then the result is where you are in one of the 6 tiers of classification, where 1 and 2, of course, are the blue shade there, integral to business strategy. 3 and 4, some evidence of implementation. 5 and 6, limited or no evidence. So perhaps next image. So if you can do an enter button. Yeah, so which organisations are in the integral to business strategy? Who's performing really well? Well, 2 Swiss companies, both retailers, and then 4 British companies, Noble Foods, Waitrose retailers, Marks and Spencer's, which I'm sure you've heard of, and Cranswick. So many of them are being dominated by European organisations. But last year there were 11 Chinese companies that decided to start participating in this, and everybody has ambitions, and it's mostly written into a lot of their strategic plans to progress and improve their tier rating. So one more click. What's the fastest animal on Earth? Well, it's the cheetah. And you can see there that certainly in the last couple of years in particular, it's really gone gangbusters. A lot of companies have moved up in their tiers and are getting a lot more serious about it. And what's driving this? Click. Next one. Absolutely two things. So consumer interest. Consumers are wanting to understand more about how the animal products they are consuming are managed when the animals are alive, and the growing salience of business risk and opportunity around animal welfare amongst corporations. That it can be both. So it's a risk to not manage it properly, and it is an absolute opportunity to demonstrate your good practices. Okay, next slide. And I think we've got the next poll coming up now. All right. So what's BlackRock? Is it a suburb in Melbourne? Is it a Nicolas Cage movie? Maybe it's a heavy metal outfit or the world's largest asset manager. This is a brand worth knowing. I can't see any results. Maybe someone can tell me when the numbers come up. And you can probably guess already that, yes, it is the world's largest asset manager. So this is probably just an interesting job an interesting task to help you retain that information. So
still have several people still voting, Sarah, but it's
right.
coming out saying that yes, it's 100% the asset manager. I think.
Yeah, good. So what fun. All right. it is actually a suburb in Melbourne. That answer would also be correct. Anyway.
There you go.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So yeah. Okay. Keeping it spicy, Pacho. So next we've got, let's click next, Alex, and a number should come up, I'm hoping. So yes, it's the world's largest asset manager, and that's a photograph there of, here we go, of Larry Fink, Lawrence Fink, and he's the CEO. And yes, they manage $7.4 trillion worth of assets, and that's a fair bit. So every year he writes a letter to all the CEOs of the organisations in which BlackRock invest. And earlier this year he wrote a letter to them saying, you know what, just FYI, this year we're going to cut investment from companies who are not acting on climate change or won't disclose relevant data. Won't disclose relevant data around what they're doing. Yeah, we probably won't be dealing with companies that spend more than 25% of their revenue from thermal coal production. And being an absolute humongous shareholder, we're going to vote out directors that are failing to act on climate risks posed to individual firms. And, you know, they have done that. So earlier this year, they identified 244 organisations who are not making progress, and they voted against the directors in 49 of those companies. And they were big companies. So they were Exxon and Chevron, which you might expect, fossil fuel companies and petroleum companies, and Volvo and Lufthansa were the other ones who got a few cancel votes put to them. Okay, so what does this tell us? Well, this tells us that sustainability and seriousness about climate change probably isn't a nonsense, and it's probably more than just going vegan and planting trees and paying people properly. When financial organisations like BlackRock decide to change their business model to reflect social values of the time, but also manage it around risk to do with climate change, you know that you're dealing with a very, very real issue writ large. Okay, next slide, Alex. Okay, so remembering that Larry Fink talked about not disclosing relevant data. Now, I often think of sustainability then as a little bit like justice. So in many political systems and judicial systems around the world, there's this concept of justice, and not just that it has to be done, but it has to be seen to be done. And sustainability is shaping up to be absolutely that kind of thing. So next slide, please, Alex. So then sustainability proof becomes the thing. So why, okay, just keep your finger still for a minute, Alex. Bit trigger happy there, mate. So, okay, so it's okay. So here are the reasons why sustainability proof matters. So first of all, it's really good to know that you're continuously improving. So if you're setting up some measures, like anything in your organisation, the proof can actually help you as well in anyone's enterprise or organisation to show that you're continuously improving. Without a doubt, as I mentioned before about Larry Fink, it can inform not only who will invest in you, but where you focus and pour your own financial resources. So where do you need to spend your money? Okay, go nuts, Alex. Yeah. So the other part, of course, is making sure that you're keeping your social license to operate, that you're absolutely showing your customers and your consumers about your practices and where you're going to improve, and really shoring up that trust and love in your brand and product. Next one, Alex. And of course, most importantly, or well, equally as importantly, is opening the doors for business. Market access is what we're talking about here. So for many countries with signing up to different treaties or just developing their own green deals, evidence of sustainability practices or sustainability proof will absolutely matter in those sorts of negotiations and deals to open your market access. Okay, next one, Alex. Not long to go now, everybody. So what about Meat and Livestock Australia? So we as an organisation develop our strategic plan based on a number of sources. So it can be RMAC, who is the Red Meat Advisory Council, also National Farmers Federation, but there's wide and deep consultation with all of our stakeholders to develop our strategic plan. And our 2020 to 2025 strategic plan has sustainability throughout it. And this is reflected in the kinds of conversations that we're having during consultation. That's why it's in our strategic plans, because it's material and it's important. Next one. Okay, so Melanie talked about the framework and frameworks. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I am going to say that we have sustainability frameworks at Meat and Livestock Australia, which I'll talk about very briefly in a minute. But what on earth is a framework? And I think it's not an accreditation, it's not regulation. What it is, it's this evidence and sustainability proof. So it's evidence of performance across the most important areas of an enterprise or an organisation or even a country at the time. Change, Alex. Great. Thank you. So our frameworks and what they do. So as I mentioned, we have two frameworks. We have the Australian Beef Sustainability Framework that was launched in 2017, and you can see the beautiful 2020 annual update there, which came out in July. And of course, Melanie Leather, who showed you images of her stunning property earlier, is a very important member of that steering group. And also we have, so Alex, yes, the Sheep Sustainability Framework. And this is the project that has been running for about the last 18 months in terms of a build phase and is slated for launch in March, April next year. And the interesting thing about the Sheep Sustainability Framework is that it is both food and fibre. So it makes it extra fascinating. All right, Alex, yes. So we talked earlier, it provides evidence, but what else does it do? It defines sustainable production in an Australian context. Yep. It identifies the priority areas and indicators to measure. So on the previous slide, I said the most important areas or the most important parts of a business of organisation, and that's the priority areas. And there's a whole international standard about how you identify those priority areas and indicators. You don't just sit around a table and think of the ones that suit you. It is actually based on quite a rigid and rigorous process. And we review that about every 3 to 5 years. So, and then last one, when data is available, we report performance and we track it over time. All right, next one. So in closing, 3 points to go home with. Sustainability is a global trend that's here to stay, without a doubt. A sustainability promise needs sustainability proof, and you will be scrutinised. People will be asking you to prove it. And business that behaves sustainably will win in their sector. And I think there's another slide, but it's somewhat redundant. So thank you. Yes, there. So you can see I'm in Sydney and 1,200 kilometres up the road or 14-hour drive is Melanie and Banana. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah. Wonderful to have you present as always. It's a shame you couldn't be even on screen with us. Very entertaining as always, Sarah. And I understand why there's technical glitches, because you have to be a PowerPoint super user to be able to access some of those PowerPoint slides. But really appreciate your time today, Sarah, and what you have to say about sustainability. We have got a question coming in through the chat. How do we incorporate sustainability measures in our business model? So this would be for importers. How do importers or people overseas start to incorporate sustainability measures in their business models?
Excellent question. And I would say the first thing you need to do is decide what's important to measure is probably the first part. What's important to measure in the context of the strategy of your business. So your purpose, your unique point of difference. And then you can actually, like I said earlier, you can, there are many consultants around and, who can assist you in running through a materiality review. And that's what we did for beef. We're actually doing a second one for beef now and one that we're doing for sheep at the moment. And what that does is that identifies in an objective way what the most salient and important issues are in your enterprise and the issues that you where you have an impact on your environment. So it can be, it sounds complicated, but it's really not that complicated. And then you decide what's important and how you might measure them. And there are a number of different models you can use. I'm happy to talk about that another time offline if needed. Happy to do that.
How can they access some of that information easily for themselves, Sarah? Is there sites they can go to? How do they find these people that can support them?
I'd go to GSI. Would be that's sort of like the global centre for that kind of thing. Yeah.
And Melanie, for you, in terms of applying it to your business, obviously there's costs involved with doing some of these sustainability measures. How have you approached it, or succeeded in still being profitable, but still having some of these credentials?
Yeah. Thanks, Michael. Yeah, look, there is a cost involved, I guess, but there's probably a bigger cost by not being involved. Certainly by implementing the sustainability methods that we use in our business, it's what keeps us profitable and moving forward. It's ensuring that, we're meeting our market expectations. We're doing the best by our animals, so we're getting the best productivity out of them. We're doing the best by our landscape and environment, so we're not losing money in having issues in the environment. So I'd say yes, definitely a cost comes with everything you do, but more costly not to do it.